Okay, welcome back to the Hammer Time podcast, number 3. I'm one of your co-hosts, Peter Cipriano. With me yet again, we have Big Ed Hyde and young Ben Costin. Ed, say hello.
Good evening.
And Ben, say hello, please.
Good evening, Sip. Quite looking forward to this one.
Myself as well. Before we begin, it was requested by several of our followers / viewers that we do a brief introduction of who we are. It was slightly baffling to me as to why the three of us would need to introduce ourselves on a Rackets podcast, but I'll start. I got into rackets in my late 20s, I think at the age of 26 or 27, having come from squash and then real tennis. I have been coached at the Racket and Tennis Club by James Stout and Neil Smith. Sort of backed into the game. I got put into to the club championship doubles tournament, I think in 2014 or 15, after having lost off of 10-point handicap to I guess what's now like a 25 or 30 handicap player the year before. So the quick rise, got to play with Guy Devereaux, and he carried me to the club championship win, and it was I guess it's all been history ever since. I consider myself a world number 1 partner picker, having played several tournaments. I think I've only played opens with current or former world champion doubles players, James Stout, Neil Smith, and Christian Ports. And I'm an avid player. I'm probably playing the most out of anyone in the entire continent of North America nowadays, given coronavirus and the fears around showing up to public places. We'll go next to Mr. Hyde, world number 125. Is that what it is?
I'm not. I'll let the viewers have a look at the rankings themselves. But yeah,
I've got it up. You're in the top 50, but you are still below Makey.
Thought so. And that's even after a couple of years of erosion. So there you go.
We might have to have a challenge match
on Tunbridge Red. Yeah, actually, he beat me on Tunbridge Red, even though he can't move.
He nearly beat me on Tunbridge Red as well, don't we?
Yeah, that's a hard intro to follow up. I picked up rackets at Tunbridge under the BDI of Dave Makey. I was a cricket and hockey player, and then Makey introduced me to the rock and roll lifestyle of a rackets player, sitting in his office mainly, just listening to some dodgy rock music, and then going for sort of a 5-minute hit every afternoon before returning to his office for some more aimless chat and some more music. Then after school, I played at Queens a bit and Chicago. Did a few of the tournaments in the US, and I've stayed involved ever since, mainly for chat purposes. And I consider myself world number 2 partner picker after Sip. I've lucky enough to have played a few tournaments with Benny Corsten, and we've won a couple of those. So yeah, over to you, Benny.
Oh, that's another tough one to follow up. Right, I started playing. I can't remember. Apparently, some say it was 2 or 3 years old, but I don't know. I'm gonna go 6. Properly at probably 12, having played a lot of squash. When I went to a state school near Winchester College, played all my rackets there growing up. My dad being the pro there, he coached me. And then after that, similar to Heidi, I did a fellowship at Queen's under Ben Bomford, who taught me a bit more. And then also Chicago, hit loads of balls there with those guys. Then I guess again, following Heidi, I'd also learned under Dave Makey, probably more so in the sort of music world, over the rackets side of thing. Then did a year at Wellington, and now also the assistant pro at Radley.
Beautiful. We should add that Ben is also the 2020 U.S. Open singles champion.
I am indeed.
Do you have Any other opens? Doubles?
No open opens. Just a Western Open.
No opens. I was on court for the 2017 British Open final. I watched James Stout win 2v1 with.
Say, very modest intro of you, Sip. The only open doubles winner here.
Yeah. Again, I was on court for it. Can't say I contributed.
You got beyond the final. The semi with the cramp though was a bit.
Semi was the cramp, yeah. If you guys go back, if you're bored one day on YouTube, you can watch me in severe pain trying to play it off like it was funny, but it was big problems in that match. I lucked out having, that's part of the one of the nice things about being the world #1 partner picker is a lot of times your partner can take over the court for you when needed. So that being said, that match happened on Court 1 at Queens, and that's where we're going to start. Today we're going to be going through 10 or 12 courts in the UK. We're going to be splitting our review of several courts, probably in 2 separate pods, possibly 3, depending on how long this takes. So we'll start at Queens. Ben, your thoughts on Queens 1?
Queens 1 championship court.
Championship court.
It's definitely a court which has like a divided opinion. I mean, in terms of school pros and school boys would say it's a pretty terrible court, I think. And I think most of the guys that play up there say it's a very nice court. It's just quite severe, I guess, probably why people say, like, sort of club players would say it's quite tough. Tough to get the serve back, comes down a lot, stays quite low off the floor, skids through, which also makes it quite tricky. Personally, I don't mind it now. I must say, as a schoolboy, I really didn't like it at all. Just sort of watching players serve past me and walking to the other side. But now I quite like it because it's quite sort of consistent. It doesn't do too much irregular stuff. So yeah, I'd say it's okay. It's not my favorite, not my least favorite.
Ed, how are your thoughts on how the court plays?
Similar to Ben, as a schoolboy, you go there and play in tournaments, and it's pretty severe. It's something you're not used to, especially playing on courts like Tunbridge, where the new court doesn't take much cut. But yeah, the thing that stands out for me is the new door on that court. I know Sip Senior has commented on the glass door. I think it's a bit of a touchy subject. In the grand scheme of things, it's not too important, but you do have to be aware of it because the ball does slow down significantly when it does hit that door. So yeah, I'm not sure what you guys think about the door.
I think having played, there was one point actually that I'm remembering in one of our matches in 2017 where the ball hit the crack in the door. I think it might have been the semifinals and went sideways at a very important time. We ended up pulling through, but it was bad timing. I think, if on that court, you have a glass door on basically every other court that I can think of in the UK, you got a wood door. So, it's another element of the court that you have to deal with. Like in Manchester, you have that old wood door that's totally dead. Basically everywhere you go, you're going to have to be dealing with some sort of unusual aspect of the court, whether it's the door, the floor, the front wall being messed up, cracks in the side walls, whatever. So I think it just adds to the character. As far as I'm concerned, I think the Queen's Court, going there for the first time, it's definitely different than anywhere else in the U.S. I think the thing for me that stuck out was I was told, and having watched matches on YouTube, I was told before they repainted the floor or something like that fairly recently, like within the past 5 or 10 years. And it was a lot more severe prior to having the floor painted. It seemed to me like the ball would actually stay up, where on some other courts the ball would end up rolling on serves, but actually the tougher serves and balls to get back were the shorter balls that were hitting floor first. For whatever reason, I think the floor being a different texture and roughness than the sidewalls, makes for, I think, a lot more racket errors from people trying to adjust from a floor to a sidewall. Just the bounces are slightly different. But it's it's always, I think, a pretty exciting place to play. You have a big gallery. Usually there's a decent crowd. So the atmosphere is good. And it's a very historic place just for the game of rackets too. So it has that going for it. But I think the court plays pretty well, and just just like anywhere else, you need to adjust to it when you get there. A lot of it has to do with the balls too.
Yeah, I mentioned side walls that are very shiny.
Yep.
So it comes very straight, which I quite like playing doubles. It's quite easy to take it off the walls. Stays quite true. It doesn't kind of come across you too much in the middle. But
Yep.
yeah, that's a good point about the floor being quite rough, which is normally you're used to a shiny wall and a shiny floor. So that's a good point. And yeah, the gallery's immense, really, especially that open doubles final every year seems to just be rammed. I mean, I know for me it's the best gallery I've ever played in. Just how sort of steep it is, so they almost feel kind of on top of you, even at the top. So I think that's quite a cool feature, Queens.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a unique gallery because you have a lot of standing room, not really sitting room, right? So you have people
it's all
standing and doing a fair bit of drinking, and they can actually leave their glasses
yeah.
on the
it's got that cool little box in that right corner where you can kind of see over the court. That's quite a cool bit of the gallery, I think.
Yep.
Ben, you've won another open title on that court as well. The under 24 Open British.
Under 24 doubles, I think, is one of my.
You forgot that.
You picked a good partner for that one, right?
I must say, my partner served very well in that one. Did pretty well against a good pair, actually.
Speaking of serving on that court, I'd say it takes the serve pretty well. Some of the better servers that we mentioned on the first podcast, Richard Owen, Alex Titchener-Barrett, Harry Foster, guys who have figured out how to serve on that court. You can move the ball around pretty effectively without it doing weird stuff on you. So I think, on other courts, sometimes you have to slow your swing down or adjust what you're doing. On that court, you can kind of just go in and have a whack at it and not have to really worry about the ball doing some weird things.
Yeah. Foul cut anymore. It used to. I find foul cut quite a lot, but that seems to have gone. So you can just hit through it now. She said.
Yep. Moving to Bridgman. Speaking of courts that are good for serving, I'd say that they may be number one court for serving in the UK that I'm aware of. I'd say it's probably more similar, that court, to a Chicago 2 or a Detroit in terms of the way that it takes the serve and how difficult it is to return on the court, especially in that right-hand corner. I found, the ball just sort of doesn't come out at all. But I personally like courts like that. So it played pretty true. And I think it's actually truer than the championship court in terms of like how the bounces are pretty consistent from the floor to the sidewalls. But obviously the return of serve is just like incredibly difficult on that court.
Well, I think I'm on as a Bridgman specialist, having been the only Rennie Cup winner here.
Right. You could be really bad valleys and killing balls off the back wall, but it doesn't matter if you could serve well, which I think that's all I did, to be honest. I think it applies to both courts at Queens. They are pretty true courts, and I found that whilst working at Queens, I used to do quite a lot of hits like really early in the morning at sort of 7 a.m. Ben may have done the same, but at that time of the morning, you're really struggling to see the ball and move. And I found the courts at Queens pretty helpful for that. The ball used to come on quite nicely. And I think the court helped me sort of ease into the hit, even though it was still dark outside and I was still in bed, basically. Not sure how you found it, Ben, early in the mornings there.
Yeah, the morning ones were tough. I don't think any court would have saved me there. I don't know, Bridgman. I struggle quite a lot on that court. I'm sort of the opposite of Sip. I find it quite kind of friendly. I don't know if that's just me compared to the old court. Serving, I find hard. My main kind of what kind of weirds me out about it, I guess, is going from the old court to that court. I feel I have to hit through the ball a lot kind of harder to get it deep and to get it to kind of come down and do stuff off the back. On the old court, I can just kind of lean into it, not have to swing too big. But on the Bridgman, I find I have to go a bit Tunbridge and give it a bit of a bash to
with that.
Doing some quick adjustments here, boys. Apologies for the distractions. Apologies to all of our fans as well. I want them to be able to see my face, and very problematic with the sun going down here in Maplewood, New Jersey, scenic Maplewood. So are we good on Queens? We got a lot to cover today.
Yeah, another quirky feature is a little side bit in the wall where you can watch from at the top, where you used to be able to, the sort of top left of the court. Yeah, it's a little kind of gallery inside the sidewall. So that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah, that's about what I got on the Bridgman.
Very good. We're going to be covering probably 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're going to try to get through 10 more courts. I'll be honest with our crowd. I'm sorry to disappoint, but having picked up rackets in my late 20s and not gone on a Not Stevens tour, I have very little experience. So I'm going to be more of a moderator here than a contributor, and I'm going to basically turn it over to these boys. So I have the list. We're going to start with the Eaton Courts. Ed, your thoughts on? I don't even know. Is it Eaton 1? How do they number the courts there?
I don't know. I think correct me if I'm wrong.
I think
the one on the left is where the top matches are played, I guess.
That's the main court, yeah.
Yeah. Both really good courts, I think. Both quite, the colours sort of light brown. And they're both sort of very shiny courts. Good for serving. You can get in the box, takes a bit of cut, pretty true. Yeah, I can't really have any grumbles about those courts. Some nice, lovely galleries as well. Wooden galleries, quite steep, and always nice to be greeted by Peter Breaks Labradors.
Yeah, very true. Eaton's like I asked a load of kind of the top players and sort of club players like what were their favourite courts and what were the nicest courts in the UK. And a lot of people said Eaton was one of like two of the nicest courts in the UK because they just do everything you expect. They're sort of middle of the road in every sense, sort of not too quick, not too slow, come down a bit, but not too severe. Pretty true. I mean, personally, I don't have very good memories at Eaton because they just beat us every time. But also losing to Ben Bomford in the pro singles final there. Very good court for a retriever. Sort of, you can run around and fetch quite a lot of balls. But yeah, it's very nice. Nothing to complain about there.
Is it a quick court or is it slow or how is it?
Well, what's interesting about all the UK courts is anyone from the US will say every court's slow here.
Yeah.
Because I would say Queens is a quick court for the UK, whereas you think it's quite a slow court coming from.
I would say that's a slow court. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say Eaton's a bit slower than Queens, but pretty middle of the road in terms of speed for UK courts. I'd say maybe slightly further up. I don't know about what you think, Heidi.
Yeah, I agree. Both are pretty similar as well. It's not like Chicago where one's quite different from the other, and same at Queens. Both courts are pretty similar.
Yeah, I think they're the closest sort of pair of courts. We play very similar to each other.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think there was some chat about the court's moving as part of some new sports centre. I'm not sure what the latest is with that.
Yeah, I heard that. I'm not sure what David Norman's got in store.
I may be completely wrong, so sorry if I've upset people there, but that's.
Yeah, I mean that could have been a secret, that one, Heidi. I don't know. Right. I mean that's
the court on the right.
court on the right's basically the same as far as I can tell. It might be a tiny bit slower. I don't know if I've only played on it once, and never sort of back to back. So, as far as I'm concerned, they're very similar. Galleries look the same as well. Pretty identical, from what I can tell.
Sounds like the British rackets equivalent to the New York East and West real tennis courts, being extremely similar. Very good. I think the thing that knowing a lot of guys from Eaton, for whatever reason, they all seem to have the same serving motion. So I think, in the U.S. and I guess for whatever reason, seeing guys like I think of like Will Hopton sort of coming over that ball, having a high ball toss out and coming around it a bit. For whatever reason, it must take that sort of serving motion well. That or the coaching from break is.
Yeah, I mean, I've had lessons from break on that court, and I played around with serving on that court quite a bit. And it definitely it's better to have that slightly higher contact and come down rather than sort of underneath serving. You might be able to do it Queens a bit kind of from underneath on it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I mean, all Etonians seem to serve well everywhere using that kind of technique.
I mean, every guy that I can think of, I mean, even going back up to the youngest guys like that I know, Tony Morales, Charlie Bram, Loop, they all have very strong serves, and for the most part, like fairly similar motions, like in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, they're all different players, but all good servers.
Yeah.
So moving on, we're going to go over to Charterhouse.
Well, I've never played at Charterhouse, but I've watched sort of a school match there. The main thing that kind of stands out to me is the sort of trek to get there. It's at the bottom of this hill, which is actually miles away. And I had to play a match at Queen's that evening, and I had cramp just walking back up that hill. That's the main thing I'd say. I mean, I asked Rocky briefly about it and a few others, and they all said it was pretty. The left court is the main one there, 2 courts there. But pretty middle of the road for a school court, sort of kind of maybe a bit slower than average. Pretty true. Just your kind of standard school court, I guess, in the UK. They're all kind of true, a bit slow, quite bouncy, not too severe. But I've never played there. Heidi would probably shed some more light on the court.
Yeah, I played there earlier on in my school days, so my memory's a bit hazy. But what I remember is the courts just being quite fresh for guys that are sort of beginners. Like when you first play competitive matches, the rallies don't tend to be that long, and the matches are quite short. But when we went to Charterhouse, I just remember the court sort of promoting rallies and the games being a bit longer. So quite fond memories of playing there. They also do some great food at the back of the galleries throughout the day, so you find yourself just grazing on biscuits and like fruit and trays of sandwiches. So even though it's a trek right to the bottom of the hill, they somehow managed to wheel some food down there, which is always appreciated by the away teams.
We'll have to keep an eye on the Charterhouse any fellows coming out of Charterhouse for their weight then going forward.
But yeah, I think the amateur doubles has been hosted there a few times. I'm sure it could be sort of a good tournament location where people sort of stay in the nearby Godalming area, and you can play down on the court and then school, then you're nearby to Guildford as well. So it could be a really good location for a fun sort of 3 or 4 day tournament with lots of social stuff.
Yeah, I'd say about the sort of amateur doubles. I remember on YouTube watching that one with Cockcroft and ATB against Duncliffe and Owen.
I was just going to bring that up. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to say your opinions on it? I thought it was quite.
I just remember that was a very good match. I mean, Duncliffe. I just, for whatever reason, remember like his ball toss to me is always unusual because he throws the ball like so high and has to like time it in a way like where I just sort of chuck it out and swing. He's like sort of throwing it up and out. And I remember just like them hammering the ball back and forth at one another. It was a while back where I watched that match. There's so many matches on YouTube now that I've got it's a full plate trying to keep up with all the YouTube matches, parenting 2 children, having a full-time job, and trying to keep my own racket game in check.
Yeah, priorities. Yeah, I just mentioning like that match, like the standard was pretty good. I think the court promotes pretty good rackets there.
Yeah.
They all seemed pretty comfortable getting up court, so I don't think it was ridiculously quick for sort of hitting it at that pace. And it seemed pretty true out the back as well. So I just thought it promoted pretty good rackets. As Heidi said with the schoolboys as well, they seem to have lots of rallies there.
Yeah, that brings me to the quick divergence off of the topic, but the new balls being the plastic balls, correct, for the schoolboys now?
So the schoolboys on the whole pretty much use the solid plastic ones. And the Queens for the tour, well, not for the schoolboys, but for the open and stuff, we have been using the solid balls with the same plastic balls, but with some winding on top, just to make it a bit sort of less lively, less bouncy.
I've used the plastic balls. I guess I have to say the plastic balls are definitely good for rallying. It's very hard to ace someone on a serve because the ball just bounces. It won't really like suck down or do anything, with crazy cut. And the speed isn't outrageous either. So they're pretty true and it's more squashy.
Yeah.
But I would think for any schoolboys trying to learn the game, it's probably a heck of a lot easier to do.
Yeah, I think it's a learning tool. I would say, speaking to bombers at Queens, what happens with them is they start off very cold and then they get very hot.
Yeah.
So sometimes if you got some under 14, under 15 beginner kind of rackets players, the balls never warm up and they never get the serve back if they're in a tough court. Whereas obviously if you're at a chart house or somewhere a bit friendlier, they sort of get a few rallies and suddenly it's very bouncy, loads of rallies. So it does kind of make a difference depending on the court and sort of how hot the court is.
Yeah, I would say, having practiced also at Queens with the plastic balls, definitely an adjustment. So the only, I think, knock on on those balls, I guess, for younger players going forward now, presumably, I would assume that it's going to be that that the promotion of the Chicago balls, Elmer's balls, which have actually been getting a lot better in the past 6 months to a year. I think the last batch that we got was really good. Sent to us. I think it was probably, I guess, must have been at the beginning of COVID that we used it for the first time. But at any rate, he's sort of honed in his craft on those balls, and I would think for a schoolboy to have to make the adjustment from the plastic balls to the properly woven balls would be a pretty big adjustment.
Yeah,
it's like going back and forth.
I definitely say we use them in the tournaments with the plastic with the winding on top. I think Steve Tully does them mostly. They've been fine, no complaints from the top guys as far as I'm concerned. So on the whole, that seems to be a pretty steady kind of source of UK balls in the adult game.
So long as we have balls to play with, I think we're all happy.
Exactly.
Moving on to Haileybury.
Oh, great court. I think personally, I think this is the nicest court in the UK. Having only played there once in a sort of mini exhibition against Tom Billings and getting about 5 points.
It's home court, right?
It's home court. He plays very well on it. It's very true. I'd say it's very much like a bit of a slower Philadelphia. Is how I'd describe it. It's one of the slightly quicker UK courts, I think. Sort of probably a bit quicker than Eaton is what I can remember. It could have just been Tom hitting it pretty hard. It takes serve a bit, but not extreme. We had loads of rallies, but also it didn't feel like a squash court. If I had a ball on the back wall, I felt I could put it away with my limited killing ability. So I really liked it. Thought it played very well.
Yeah,
Heidi?
it's a beautiful. I've played it quite a bit since leaving school, just because it's closest to university for me. And Graham Tyndall, the pro, there, is always happy to have us. Yeah, just really nice court to play on. Pretty true. It does take the odd bit of foul cut. I found maybe that's just me. But if you chuck in a funky serve every now and then, it does sort of misbehave. And also, it's got a double-tiered
gallery,
which is unbelievable. And on the top tier, there are actually deck chairs. So whenever we had an away day at Haileybury, we always, when we weren't playing, we always used to recline on the deck chairs on the top gallery, and just sort of have a quick snooze whilst some matches were going on down below. So yeah, it's a great place to go and play schoolboy rackets. Yeah, no complaints whatsoever. And also, you get a great feed there as well in the main dining hall whenever you go.
It's good to know, Hyde, that like where your head is at when you're going to visit these.
We all know Heidi's priorities now.
Try to keep the stomach full.
You've got to fuel the stomach for when you play, and then
Feed the beast.
you're there for the whole day. You've got 6 or 8 matches going on throughout the day, and you've got to feed yourself at some point. So you've got lunch, dinner to get through. So yeah, it's the main part of the day really, bar the rackets, lunch and dinner.
Fair. Very good. Moving on, Harrow. A couple courts here. There's my wife in the background. Say hello, Dana, to everyone. You're gonna be on YouTube. She's seen just about every court. I don't know if she has any opinions, but she's an accomplished double squash player herself, having been a #1 in the world women's doubles player. Visited Queens with me back in 2017 with our daughter in her belly. But big fan, and always encouraging me to get out there and play as much as possible to keep fit, so I stay attractive to her. Sorry. So going back to Harrow.
Right, Harry. Should we start with the old new court? So I guess I don't know what I mean by that. The one on the right, I'm gonna say. We're gonna start with that one. The one just through the door, which is still quite new. I think I can't remember the exact date. Heidi might know. Maybe late 90s, 2000s, somewhere around there.
96, I think.
There you go. The encyclopedia.
I'll have to have someone check that, please. leave a comment in the comments
We've
section.
got our own Rob Schenkman on this channel. But yeah, I think it's a nice court. It's a quick one for a UK court. Definitely. It's quick, quite severe, I'd say, for a UK court. I found it cuts quite wide, which made it a bit tricky out the back. Playing doubles, I found it quite tough. Again, it comes wide, sort of into the body. So if you're on that sideboard, it's very hard to take it off it. So definitely not an easy court. But saying that, it doesn't do anything too quirky, nothing too extreme. It's just quite quick, quite quick and quite tough for the UK school court, I'd say. Heidi, why don't you give your opinions about that court, having played some first pair rackets there, I'd assume.
Yeah, played a few matches there. And you're right, it's when you're a schoolboy, it is a bit of a tricky court, just because you're less experienced and sort of getting used to the court. Whereas I think if I played there now, I'd take my time a bit more and just try and sort of think about the court beforehand and how it might play. But when you're a schoolboy, you don't really tend to have those sports, so you do struggle a bit. And I've found in some of my matches that you lose the first couple of games, then you get into the game, and usually you end up just losing 3-1 or something. But I did have a bit of a blockbuster match in my last year where we were 2-love down, I think, and came back to win 3-2, which was a
5-game comeback.
I think that's a good win. They're a good pair in your year, Heidi.
Who'd you take down in that one?
Was that Raph?
Raph, maybe, yeah.
Good win.
So So it is tricky, but once you get used to it, it's fine. And the other thing, what an entrance to the courts there. I think you've got like 100 steps as you go down to the court. There's these like 100 steps, which are always like really slippy and icy whenever you go there. Which the court, it's quite a unique entrance.
Yeah, and then you've got the so the old court. I guess we'll start off by saying the old court because that's what we both played on. You sort of go down some stairs to reach that one. So you feel like a bit out of the way. I guess I feel very low, sort of in a basement, playing in there. And it used to be a bit bigger than all the other courts. Sort of.
I understand they built that court specifically for doubles. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was always told it was a doubles court, which makes sense. It didn't, when you're on it, you didn't really feel it was that much bigger. But looking at it from the gallery, you could kind of tell.
It's longer, correct? A few feet longer.
I think it was longer. Yeah, I'm not sure about the width on it. Might have been a tiny bit wider, but I'm not sure. Definitely longer. And I found it quite slow. I found it fine. It felt quite slow though, coming from the other court at least. Didn't do anything too dodgy. Just felt a bit kind of dim, being down there compared to the newer one, which was a bit flashier. I mean, but that's completely changed now. Having built the new court inside that one recently.
And how recent? That was only a few years ago, right?
This year, last year.
Okay.
We haven't had the official opening for it yet.
So has it gotten any play at all?
It has, and I just asked John Eaton for a brief kind of rundown. I'm not sure how biased his opinion is, but he said plays great, very true, quite fast, no sharp angles. Returning serve seems fine, not too severe, quite easy, but does come down a bit. Looks fantastic, and apparently the gallery is sort of quite steep, like Queen's. That's how he's sort of described it. And I've heard of a few people playing on it, and they say it's quite nice. Definitely for a new court, which we know can go a bit wrong or be a bit funny. But apparently that one's pretty normal.
Well, it's a hell of an advertisement for the new court at Harrow. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess if you ever find yourself in that neck of the woods and can get on, strongly suggest that you make the effort. I know I certainly will the next time I'm in the London area.
After that advertisement. Heidi, any info? Well, any sort of thoughts playing on the old court there? When you
No, I played on that court as like an under 14 or under 15, so my memory's pretty hazy. We always used to lose there as well, so one of the great things about Harrow though is the pro shop, the pros office with John Eaton in there. Always loved going there because you spend about 2 or 3 hours talking about fantasy football in the pro shop. John Eaton is has been like top 10 in the UK at fantasy football.
Very good fantasy football player.
Is this Football Manager or Fantasy Premier League?
Fantasy Premier League. He's right at the top.
Speaking of Fantasy Premier League, let's check out how many points are on today. Harry Kane with a big day, captained Kane.
That's a good effort. I must say I've been very slack this year and haven't really been.
I unfortunately took Luke Shaw out because I expected a better performance from Man City. So I'm leaving about probably 14 points on the bench.
I haven't done anything too special.
But I've got 32 from Kane, and they haven't even allocated the bonus points yet, which will be 3 plus 3, so another 6. So solid day from Harry Kane, getting a 38 points. Shout out to Mr. Kane, England captain. Probably doesn't know what Rackets is, but we're
I must say my team's looking weak, and I'm going to have to give John Eaton some tools to sort me out. But it's always a saving grace going to Harrow and getting your fantasy football team fixed.
It's an important aspect of life, and I think most of our listeners probably participate. Maybe next year we go for a Rackets group in fantasy football. fantasy football league.
I might say we're probably not inviting John Eaton into our fancy football league.
Yeah, no, I think could be worth talking about in the future episodes. Maybe a fantasy rackets league. Somehow we come up with that. I don't know. We have any computer geniuses that can build such a program. Moving on, we have Radley.
Oh, Heidi,
boy, here we go.
Should I go?
You pick off. Right there.
Yeah, I do work there at the moment. I must say this is personally my favourite court to play on, partly because it's a lot of people's least favourite courts to play on. It's tough. It's very severe. I mean, we haven't talked about St Paul's, but I'd say it's probably the most severe in the UK, bar St Paul's. Probably the world, really. America, I can't think of any other courts as severe as this. Very tough out the back, comes down a lot. If you get the length right on serve, it doesn't really come back. But saying that, after the sort of serving things out the way, the rallying's very true. If you hit it flat, it'll come up. So you really have to cut it in order for it to come down, I'd say. So if you hit a hard ball in the corner, it still comes out. It's still gettable. It's just for serving really, and cutting it deep makes it tough. Saying that, the sidewalls and the floor are really nice, I find. So playing doubles is great once you're in a rally. The sort of side to side stuff feels really true. And just knocking up on it, it's really nice to do that because it's quick and you don't have to do too much with the ball. Just put it in the sidewall and it will kind of, the ball do the rest. That's what I'd say. But yeah, for me, my favourite court, definitely one I'd pick to play against anyone really. Having played a pro singles there and done pretty well, I'd say that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's that court was always brutal. It was always a brutal away day to Radley because if you couldn't return a serve, then you were taken. So it's pretty brutal on that front. But Ben's right. Once you get into the rally, it plays really nice. It's really slick, quite quick. But yeah, the problem is returning the serve is a pretty hard task there. And also just there's a lovely location right in the middle of the school as well. Lovely building. You get all the boys walking past. So yeah, difficult to play on, but lovely location.
Yeah, I'd say a quirky kind of feature is the gallery. It doesn't go the whole way across, so there's a bit of the gallery kind of missing, which is just a wall. So you only get about 2/3 of gallery, which kind of makes less people, but it does feel, if it's quite busy, like it was in the pro singles final. It's the only kind of time I remember. It like on court, you felt like there were quite a lot of people watching, even if it was only sort of 15 or 20, because they were quite close, packed in. That's just another thing I'd mention.
Another quirky feature is the pro shop is across the road.
Across the road, yeah. I mean, it's not really the pro shop; it's a sort of sports office, I guess. But yeah, Rocky would sort of have to commute from his office into the Rackets court, sort of every hour or so. There is a sort of, they do the stringing like right outside the door. So if I'm stringing, sort of no one can get in the door because it's right outside the court. But yeah, that's a good point, Heidi. It's the only one I can think of across the way.
Maybe you should rethink that. Bradley College will have to talk to whoever the head man is. I must
say there's not too much space there in the building. You sort of get in there, the door's about 2 feet in front of you. There's maybe 8 feet on the left of you, and the stairs are immediately on the right of you. So
sounds like a bit of an opposite to the entrance to the tuxedo court, where there's very little space at all.
Yeah.
If you think about that one. Not that I know anything about Radley. Moving on to a court I've watched on St. Paul's. So my thinking on this court, actually, it's interesting to hear you guys say that it's so severe. Having watched the World Championship clips with Neil Smith and James Mail, and hearing Neil talk about it, it looked to me like the ball would kick in a lot. It looked pretty bouncy to me, but it looked like the court took the serve really well, and gripped the ball. And that was just after they redid the court. I think they had I guess this must have been around like 2002 or 2000, somewhere around there, maybe a little bit earlier. So maybe the court plays differently now. I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I played, watched some rackets there, watched some schoolboy matches. And I mean, I know that any away kind of school going there would used to kind of think we got no chance. We're going to St Paul's. We're just going to see 60 serve go past us and lose 4-love. And watching now, I did witness that a bit. I mean, as soon as the ball hits the back wall, you seem pretty screwed. It just comes across you a lot, really sharply. No matter how straight you serve, it will come out sharply. So that's very tough to adapt to. Apart from the back wall, I think the sort of floor looks quite nice. I mean, when I watched sort of the schoolboys knocking up there, it seemed fine. But any time the ball seemed to reach the back wall in the rally, didn't seem very nice. I mean, they served a lot of sort of forehand from the right, maybe some backhand from the left. I remember speaking to Nico Hughes quite a lot. He was a St Paul's guy, and he produced some pretty good results against sort of the top 10 in the world there when he was a schoolboy, just by saying even they couldn't really get his serve back, being a lefty, serving that left-handed one from the left.
He has a good serve from that left-hand box. I remember we played him in the British Open, and Christian somehow dealt with it well, but he played with Roy Giddens. We were lucky to get out of there 4 straight games that were all very close, but I remember being pretty impressed by that forehand serve from the left box. It was very severe on queens. Ed, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when I said that, nothing lives up to St Paul's. You'd always go there on a damp Thursday afternoon, and you just know you'd be in for a really sort of tough match. With what Ben said about the back wall, that just cuts across you really sharply, and sort of even playing there on the 4th and 5th time, when you know what's going to happen, somehow you just still don't read it as well as you should, and you just find people serving straight through you, and before you know it, the game's over. So it's usually a pretty quick affair when I play there. I remember my first match, I think it was like under 15 or under 16. Makey, my school pro, told me and my partner, we just sort of asked him about the court, and he was like, "Oh, there's absolutely nothing to sort of worry about. True as it comes. It's like the old court at Tunbridge. Nothing will be absolutely
mind game."
Had a quick knock up, and we're like, "Oh, this isn't too easy." And then we lost the spin, and then I don't think we served until halfway through the second game, and we were just looking up to Dave in the gallery, who was sort of niggering as we tried desperately to serve. So it was quite funny, actually. Yeah, really, really, really tricky court to play on.
Sounds like that takes the cake for the trickiest court in the UK. We have one more court. Speaking of, Tunbridge.
Oh, Heidi, you take this on. You played there more than me.
Yeah, well, let's start with the old court, which is called the Dale Memorial Court, right in the middle of the school. And in my eyes, I think close to Philadelphia in terms of one of the best courts in the world in terms of just all-round play. Reasonably quick, very true, not too severe, but if you do give the serve a good rip, it will cut down. Just you can't really complain about it too much. Nice gallery at the back, nice sort of atmosphere and ambience. If crowd in there full of schoolboys. Yeah, what do you think, Benny, having worked there for a year or so?
I'd say it's a very nice court. I'd say it's a bit slower personally. I think it just seems quick because you're dealing with a load of Tunbridgians who hit it twice as hard as everyone else. I'd say it's a bit slower but very true. No complaints there. I do have one complaint in that I can't see the ball every time I go on there because it's so dark. Especially if you've been on the other court, which is definitely the brightest court you ever see. But that one at night, I really struggled to. I remember Billings came because Billing lives quite near Tunbridge, and we hit a few times in the evenings. Both of us would sort of take about 10, 15 minutes before we could really see the ball, just because it was so dark. But in the daytime, definitely no complaints. Very nice, very true. Does everything you expect. Comes down a bit off the serve. Quite good for mixing up the serve. Does a foul cut, so you can hit that forehand from the right, a few backhands from the left. But yeah, pretty true, pretty nice. I think.
Lovely wooden door as well. The original door's still there.
It's one of the best wooden doors I can think of.
Yeah. It's a bit eroded at the corners and things. And a few chunks have been taken out of it by probably rackets and balls. But yeah, great door.
Right, and the new court. I guess you were there when it. You probably have some different views on it because it's changed quite a lot in the last few years. Ever since Makey did his wonder job of putting that layer of paint on the front wall to stop the foul cut. But I just remember going to the opening and seeing Hoppy and John Pren playing an exhibition doubles against would it have been Maltz and Moynihan? Maybe might have been that.
Correct. That's
there you go. Very good backhand, George had. But I just remember like Johnny Maltz, like who was a very good schoolboy rackets player. He would go up to serve with like this perfect kind of technique and action, and every time he just foul cut it, even the back wall and the gallery. And whatever he did, he just couldn't get it to not foul cut. And I mean, I think Hoppy and John Pren was struggling a bit with that as well. Definitely not like that now. But personally, I think it's quite nice. I know a lot of people. I mean, Billings would always wanted to play on the old court, and I'm sure a lot of top players say it's kind of a bit like a squash court. It's pretty bouncy. The back wall is pretty shiny, so it doesn't grip much on it. But I quite liked it. It did take some time though. Didn't like it immediately, but it was always, if I had to play a read in the singles, I'd always say let's play on that one because I think I can do you on that one more likely than on the old court.
How much of a change was it when Makey put the new paint on? Was that? I mean, I can't remember a single court that I've seen where I've played that I've played on where there's been a new paint job and an old paint job. So I'm interested to hear the effect that had.
Yeah, well, Heidi would have lived it, but definitely with the new one, you could properly rip it, go right under it, and you can't get any foul cut really. You'd have to do one of those sort of quirky, sort of overhead topspin from the right. That would get it to grip. So you can kind of do those quirky kind of serves of kind of railroads which spin back. So it does take those.
The John Pren serve.
John Pren serve and the ATB kick one from the left.
Yep.
Those serves work very well there. They definitely do some different things, but on the whole, if you're not trying to foul cut it, it doesn't anymore. And I like serving on it. Most people say it's too much of a squash court, but I found I could just properly go right underneath it and get it to come down. Yeah, Heidi would play there more than me probably. So.
Yeah, that court came into play when I was sort of in my second year at Tunbridge, and to begin with, it was absolute carnage because you had guys trying to hit it sort of for sticks, and it was foul cutting, and it was quick. So it's interesting it was interesting during those first few months. Surprised no one really got hurt actually playing on there. But I think since having gone back after having left, it behaves much better. There's less foul cut. It's still very quick. So if you do a hammer serve, or if you give it a good welly, it will travel.
Tunbridge for sure.
It's difficult to serve on there. So you have to be prepared to rally and run round, which can be an issue if Makey hasn't swept the court in months.
I will say the floor's very kind of shiny and not porous, so it doesn't, like, being the assistant now, I'd spend sort of 2-3 times a day just sweeping the court, because it did lose its grip quite a lot. But when it was grippy, when it was clean, it was fine.
That collects a lot of dust, that court, and yeah, I tend to find that if you play a sort of best of 5, you do need to clean the court halfway through, otherwise you've got gating basically, and not trusting their step. But yeah, fun court to play on. It's got a nice gallery which can fit a lot of people in, and it's also a fun court to play on in the height of summer, because it's got a big glass roof and quite thick walls, and it reached some horrible temperatures on there, as well as being bright red. I think the reason why it was Dave chose bright red was because he said he couldn't have a bright red Ferrari. So
yeah, that story to me.
If he couldn't have one of those, he's going to have a bright red Rackets court. So yeah, it is pretty bright, and it takes a lot of getting used to when you first go on there. But yeah, the other thing that springs to my mind is the tin.
Yeah, I was going to say the board is so deafening.
You could hear because the Rackets courts at Tunbridge are right next to the first 11 cricket pitch, and if you're playing on that cricket pitch and someone hits the tin, it's a good 50 yards from the court, but you can still hear it, and it's deafening when you're on court. It's horrible.
I'm sure that it's nice to play Makey on that court then, if he's hitting the tin at all.
Yeah, no, I'd have to cover my ears quickly as soon as I saw it go anywhere near the board. Very loud. It's a great location, the Rackets courts, right in the middle. As Heidi said, cricket pitch right outside. More importantly, the sweet shot right next door sort of attracts a lot of Rackets players to come in at break.
Yeah, I mean, if you're ever in need of a custard cream or a biscuit of any kind, then the Tunbridge Rackets court are your place. Makey's always got a few chocolate stashed away, and you're right next to the tuck shop as well.
Well, yeah, having seen
this is good info for our viewers here.
Exactly. We now know why Heidi's a Rackets player, having found out what his preferences are.
And it's very impressive that you've kept your figure, Ed.
Well, I mean, he struggled in Chicago, from what I hear. But
that's easy to do. I mean, you might not ever actually leave the building if you go there, and you make some wrong decisions. You get very heavy there very easily.
But yeah, great place to play, even though I'm a bit biased.
No, definitely great place.
Beautiful.
Small pro shop. None of the chairs, I think. None of the chairs actually work, and the dangerous to sit on, and there's not enough space for anyone. But it's
exactly. I was going to say that. Yeah, he's decorated it well with his sort of all his albums, vinyls, and records going on.
What's the radio station he listens to? Planet Rock.
Planet Rock.
Yeah.
It's sort of on the top kind of speaker. Just a really funny story when I was there. Makey's got his music on, sort of quite loudly, and he hears someone coming and he turns it up louder, sort of thing. He's got it on like 10 now, and he turns around. It's the head man at the door, and Makey's gone to turn it down, but the head man's just said, "No, I quite like this. I quite like this station." Which was very amusing when I was there.
Beautiful. Well, boys, that does it for today. We've covered the courts that we had lined up. I think next time, possibly a week from now, We will cover the rest. Please throw us a like or leave a comment if you have any thoughts on favorite courts. It sounds like the top couple were Eaton and the new Harrow court got a glowing review, and possibly the old court at Tunbridge. So interested to get some votes if people want to leave some thoughts. So we that does it for today, and we look forward to giving you the rest of the review in a week or so. Boys, say goodbye.
Good night, guys.
Good night. Take care.